Economics is a social science concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Importance of economics is important for many areas of society. It can help improve living standards and make society a better place. Economics is like science in that it can be used to improve living standards, but it can also make things worse.
Now, let's, let's explain resources. Resources are natural human and man-made wealth that can provide satisfaction through the production of goods and services. There are three resources. We have the natural resources, the human resources, and the physical resources. What is natural resources? Natural resources are material and substances that occur naturally and can be used for economic gain. So, I will give an example of natural resources. We have the water, soil, timber, and oil. Now, what is human resources? Human resources is the division of a business that charged with finding, screening, recruiting, and training job as well as administering employee benefit program. And lastly, the physical resources. What is physical resources? Physical resources are tangible items that are used in operation of the business. It is man-made things used in production of commodities and services. Examples of physical resources we have paper, cars, structures, and other man-made things.
Scarcity means limited resources or commodities. 3. There are three categories for scarcity: demand induced, supply induced, and structural. Demand induced scarcity happens when the demand of the resources increases and the supply stays the same. Structural scarcity, unequal access to natural resources in a given society, makes them scarce for large segments of the population. Supply-induced scarcity happens when the supply is very low to comparison to the demand. The importance of scarcity is simply the concept that human wants, not human needs, exceed the resources available that are necessary to produce the goods used to satisfy those wants. Thus, scarcity is a fundamental, the most important concept in economics.
Hello. Hello. My name is Michael Ugto from the section known as Mendeleev, and today we're going to be having a discussion about those Sir Nicks already discussed to us. I will now explain what allocation means. It means exactly what it says. Well, I know that much is obvious, so let me explain how this relates to economics. Now, then Renzi Mendoza, Cedric, mentioned in his explanation that economics is like science. It can be used as a means of improving living standards in a country or to make it worse. And another definition of economics is the social science that deals with the allocation of scarce resources, at least according to your discussion, sir. But now comes the question, why is allocation so important to economics? Or how is it so important that it even comes up in one of its definitions? And the answer to that is simple. The reason why allocation is so important to economics is because if you can't learn how to allocate properly, you can't have a good economy. And, and again, you may ask, why can't you have a good economy if you can't allocate properly? This is because if you're working in the government, the institution which directly influences the economy, you aren't just trying to allocate a few supplies of food, water, medicine, and money. You are trying to allocate an entire country's supply of food, water, medicine, money, and many more miscellaneous resources. So, in a way, allocation is like the solution in a math problem. But the math problem is, how can I improve my country's economy? So, like a math problem, if you mess up the solution even a little bit, it will cost you the right answer. Only the right answer that it will cost you is improving a country's economy, and if you fail, there could be an economic collapse, making the whole country almost literally broke. But hey, no
Mark
pressure.
George Wells Chapno, and today I will explain or discuss what is supply. Now, let's explain supply. Now, supply, with the context of economics, can be defined as goods and services that are taken to the market, meaning their products are available right now, not the products that still being prepared and made. And to help understand what supplies does for the economy, I will now explain its very own law, the law of supply. This law states that other factors remaining constant, price and quantity supplied of a good are directly related to each other. In other words, when the price paid by us, the buyers of for a good rises, then suppliers increase the supply of the good in the market, which goes hand in hand together with the law of demand, which will be explained later. So, with the information we got from the law, let's try to understand what supply does for the economy. I think that based on the law we just learned, that supply is not resources of a country, but instead the products being sold within it. So, what I think supply does for the economy is that it serves to satisfy the consumers, the buyers, by giving them products based on their demands, wants, and needs.
All right, now that you know what economy, allocation, and supply are, it's time we talk about. Now, demand is quite the strong word, isn't it? Instead of requesting for something with words or phrases such as please, may I, could you, slash I, or even just I want you to get this or that. No, instead it's I demand you to get this or that. And well, it is a strong word. After all, in the dictionary, one of its meanings is a strong need for something. Well, it's almost as if this connects to needs, the next topic to be discussed right after this. But that's for later. For now, let us discuss demands in the context of economics. Now, normally it would be impossible to talk about demand without supply. After all, in economics, one of the most important things you need to understand is supply and demand. According to people who know more about economics, but even if that's the case, we'll try and focus more on just demand this time, since I assume you got the gist of what supply is like earlier. So to help us understand what demands is in economy, we have to understand something called the law of demand. And what is the law of demand? The law of demand is basically another explanation of the relationship between the consumer, buyer, and the seller slash supplier. But unlike the law of supply that was mentioned before, this is how us buyers tend to react to price changes. And this law states that Other factors being constant, such as price and quantity, demand of any good and service, are inversely related to each other. When the price of a product increases, the demand for the same product will fall. To put it simply, this law states that when the product, to put it simply, it is just this. Alright? But the same goes for the reverse. If the price of a product decreases, not increases, if the price of a product decreases, the demand for the same product will rise. So, with that in mind, let's try to define demands. So, what I think demand itself is, in terms of economy, is basically the products that us, the consumers, want, which I based on the law we used earlier. So, I think that demands is the products that the consumers want.
My name is JJ Calsario. I'm gonna talk about wants and material wants. Economics wants are desires that can be satisfied by consuming a good service or leisure activity. Because some people have different economics when they purchase a whole variety of goods and services. Material wants are desires of consuming to obtain use various goods and services that provide utility. Scarcity refers to a situation in which goods and services are limited in supply, and thus the full demand for those goods and services cannot be met.